And we're back out here at the VFW on 5th Street, and our show today is sponsored by Sun Loan and Tax Company, Cameron Kurtz and Josh Komnick. And if you're just joining us, our guest today is Dr. Dan Freesmeier. And Dr. Freesmeier, before the break, we were kind of talking a little bit about how you can use some of this as preventive medicine. And it seems that, like we see an athlete, once they become injured, they're more prone to injury. And once a player becomes injured and after they heal, how do they prevent the same injury from reoccurring?
Well, what typically happens to get them injured, short of trauma now short of contact with the sport, where they typically get in trouble is they're out of balance. Mm-hmm. When I see guys in the gym, they all have this tendency to work their anterior groups, okay? And so understand that a muscle-joint relationship is about balance. So I'm really big on body balance. Athlete will come in and they've overworked their pecs because they were in the mirror looking at the pecs and they're going, I look good doing this. Okay?
I did that before.
Years ago.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
And so we get them to stand and look, and we go front and back. They should be able to stand at their side and put their arms to their side. I can't stand here on camera, but a lot of times you see the athlete, you put a pencil in each one of their hands and put their arms to their side. They eventually find themselves kind of gravitating towards the front. So we know they've done too much of this stuff, all right? You'll find that they can squat, all right, but they never bend backwards, all right? And so what happens when they really get in trouble is they really start out of balance, all right? And that's where they get in trouble with, short of the peculiar curve ball or the type of pitch. A lot of times it's really the initial starting out of balance. So when I see an athlete that comes in for the season, and if I was part of a trainer program or if I was part of a team itself, we'd go through balancing techniques. For instance, an athlete should be able to stand on his leg or her leg and bring the left knee or the right knee, whichever one they're not standing on, to their chest and hold it there and feel the same. Now the ankle will wobble. That's part of the proprioception of the brain, talking to the body. But they should be able to stand on a leg and not wobble. If they wobble, all right, or have trouble with one, they are typically out of balance starting in their lower back. Okay, they should be able to touch their fingertips, going over the back of their back, okay, up and down. They should be able to stand and rotate their shoulders, etc. And what you find is they kind of cheat when they rotate their shoulder, or when you look from the side, their ears are kind of in front of hanging over the front of their seams. And I always tell people that the center of gravity is through the belly button and down through the side of the body. What you'll see is a lot of forward this, a lot of build up in here. They ignore the rhomboids, which is a group between the shoulder blades, because that helps pull the ball back and things like that when they throw. And so that's where it really starts. And it's really interesting because they can be symptom free. They can be totally pain free. And when you show them and put them through their range of motion type tests and their balancing tricks, they go, and what is, they get dominant.
Right.
If they're lazy with their working out and they just want to focus on one area, or they're not a person who works out, and a lot of it has to do with what they start with the weight room and things like that.
And that's a good point you bring up, Doc. So many kids are into this weightlifting now. Of course, college athletes are bigger, stronger than ever. Of course, pro. When is it right for an athlete to start lifting? Whether it be, just building for bulk or just building for some lean muscle. When is it all right for a kid or for a parent to let their kids start using some weights?
Really, somewhere in the pubescent or puberty type of era, ages, the ranges on depending on whether they start the facial hair and things of that nature.
Right.
Because the plates of the bones have to develop and stop their reaching out. So we always tell them in the junior high level, depending on, you take a look at the child,
sure,
and we see that. I'm a big fan of tone type of stuff, light weights, lots of reps.
Right.
If they want to do some of that stuff, that's pretty cool. But you don't want to start building mass, not in putting stress on those growth plates. It's interesting. This past summer, I had a chance to saw several athletes out of the Springfield area. I got a friend who does some training down there, and it was amazing. Saw a really, really popular athlete down there in the high school. Names not to be mentioned, but he's going on big time college. Okay. It was amazing how strong he was, but how strong he wasn't when it came to being in balance. And he always had a few of these chronic little problems, and I went to examine him, and we went through some range of motion study, and it was interesting stuff he couldn't do because he really was so developed in certain areas.
Right.
Okay, he was so developed that, and he had this shoulder problem that really was latissimus dorsi problem, because it was kind of a group he kind of ignored.
Sure.
Well, you can't do that
Mm-hmm.
when you're going to start putting weights to the body. You just can't. If you're going to do just bicep or you think your triceps are going to be fine, as a simple example, you're wrong.
Right.
You're really wrong.
Well, it's amazing. I know in high school we were really just doing the basic stuff, some chest, some arms and things. And then when I got to college and really worked with a trainer, you're exactly right on how in some areas I was so weak, maybe weaker than I was, of course, in high school, that I just didn't know anything about, building the right muscle and how to do it.
And I will say this, okay, that I've known Josh for years. You all the way through high school, all the way through grade school, all the way through high school, all the way through college, you always had the appearance of tone and shape and symmetry. But here he says you went off when you played baseball and basketball, you went like, wow, I can't do that. And if I could define somebody that wants to have that body type that says I'm gonna always be able to fit in a pair of jeans all the time and look right, is Komnick, unfortunately, But the fact is that we're going to turn red here right now.
No, I'm good.
Okay. But what happened was, off we go to college, you realize, wow, there's a muscle group I haven't been using, and you look at someone that looks like he appears to be in shape, all tons of endurance and everything, but you run the risk of fatigue first, then damage next.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right.
Dr. Freesmeier, something that unfortunately and tragically happens every single year, and it seems like it happens more often in the summer, is an athlete will become dehydrated and will end up losing that sense of balance, will pass out, and in some more tragic cases will even pass away as a result of dehydration. How important is it to keep your body hydrated, and what is proper as far as how often you need to replenish your body of those fluids?
We should drink 2 ounces. We should drink 1 ounce for 2 pounds of weight. So if you're 150 pounds, you should be putting in about 75 pounds normally, non-active alive. 75 ounces of water a day. So when people say, there you go, Cameron, we're not talking about...
Not doing that.
We're not talking about coffee either.
No, I don't drink coffee.
Or anything else. So then when you're the athlete, okay, and we shouldn't gulp it. The tendency is to gulp it. I know it's easy to do, and there's my, I've replenished myself. If you want to flush the kidneys, gulp. If you want to hydrate the body, drink. Okay, and unfortunately, everybody thinks that because they drink these drinks and they drink coffee and I get plenty of fluid. Well, that's like someone telling me I work real hard, therefore I exercise. Right? Those two don't equate. Yeah. And so dehydration comes about through a lousy diet. Typically, look very carefully at that. When we're doing stuff, not just what has salt in it, but stuff that has junk food in it, all right? And then if we are sometimes eating too soon to when we exercise, understand the blood is not always in the stomach all the time. The blood floats around to see where it needs it. There's only a few organs the blood's always in. So if we're eating too soon, or we're eating too soon to close to practice, or whatever. Mom was right. Rest, can't go swimming after lunch before you eat your, etc. Right. All that kind of stuff. Well, the fact was that blood's in there digesting food. So when we are still sitting there doing some junk food before practice, because maybe we're not going to have a tough workout today, we run the risk of starting some of that dehydration process because the body's been trying to do this instead of doing that. The other thing is that you're really challenging the kidneys when it comes to dehydration, and that comes about by either lousy protein sources, or it comes about by not enough water. But regardless, okay, the caffeine's another one I mentioned earlier. Caffeine drags water with it. Look at these drinks, these diet drinks. Even when they're sugar-free, they have the caffeine in them. Okay, even these chemicals in them, and I'm not opposed to them. But if you're going to want to be a maximum performer, you have to pay attention to what you're doing. Who wants to put lousy gasoline into a great car? Okay, I had an old Volkswagen Beetle when I was in college. I could kick that down the street and start, okay? Right. But by golly, I'd never try to do that to a Corvette, okay? And so, who wants to be a premier performer, all right, and put bad gasoline in their body? And that's what they're doing. And they think they get away with it because they're young. They think they get away with it because they're going to sweat it out. And so they think they get away with it. And, you ask these, and I've asked a lot of these kids, do you eat salads? Yeah, the lettuce on top of the cheeseburger. And that's about as far as they get. And the high school choices have the salads out there, etc. But they typically have also the other stuff, and that's where they get in trouble.
Doc, we've got, of course, basketball for both men and women coming up, and it's it's about the time of seasonal sports where you get if you're running a Coach Al practice and you've been in there for 3 days and you're quite not used to it, you've got some stiffness. When does that stiffness go away, and when is it time, if it's too much, to come and see you?
Well, typically, if we see something, it's because it's on one side. If it's on both sides, typically that is just the body handling the, so if both my quadriceps hurt, yeah, well, guess what?
Right.
You weren't doing
You
enough
weren't in
stairs.
shape.
Yeah, you weren't in shape, okay? Both my arms hurt, both my shoulders hurt, et cetera.
Right.
If it's one, we see the athlete because it's all of a sudden, it's 24, 48 hours, and understand a muscle will heal on itself and repair itself.
Sure.
It takes a time to heal, so therefore sometimes we don't want to do all the same stuff in the workouts. But regardless, that what we will see is like, it's on my right side, and it's not on my left side. And usually it's on one side, and that's kind of a warning sign that something's not going away. And muscles will typically go away with ice. No heating pad, people. No heating pad. No heating pad. Okay, my kids are already through college. I don't need the money. Okay, no heating pad. I've made a living on people with heating pads and sofa. Okay?
Right.
We want ice because the ice tells the body, the brain, to send blood to the injured area.
Right.
A heating pad will typically tell the body, we don't need blood there, you've already exercised it. And we need blood there to repair these injuries. Ice, ice, and ice. Hot showers, fine. Okay, and for those who are going to be watching the Railers play basketball this year, at intermission, breaks, etc., timeouts, stand up and bend backwards, okay? The bleachers have been good for business. The new seats are great for business, okay? But the fact is, it's because we all lean forward and we're all leaning forward, etc. You fans, stand up, bend backwards.
There you go.
Fans a chance to breathe those lower back muscles, okay?
There's that Dr. Dan tip for you for the
There you
Raider
go.
games or
And
any
the Chiefs seats.
Yeah,
The Chiefs
for any
seats.
game that you're going to over at Mount Pulaski or wherever. Stop up. So he said he doesn't need the money. He doesn't want to see you just from sitting on the bleachers.
Dr. Freesmeier, one of our final questions here before we let you go. Are injuries more common in the lower extremities, the lower part of the body where you see the legs and the calf muscles? It seems that those areas are a little bit more prone to injury. Do you feel the same way? And if so, why is that?
I see them probably there, and then the shoulder. Shoulder because we do entirely too much stretching on the shoulder. I see the low back injuries a lot because really the athlete has lousy posture. We have sofas, we have recliners, we sleep on our stomach. We do things to just let the lower back be more prone and insulting. What's interesting is that there's larger muscle groups there. You would think that you'd see more of a contact banging on the shoulder. I mean, the shoulder thing is really from entirely too much stretching, all right? But the low back is it's always interesting. You see the soccer player who kicks only right-sided. You see a football player that stays on one side of the line and gets up and goes to the right all the time. So you see this one-sided activity that has a tendency to shift the body out of balance, and then all of a sudden we end up with the low back injuries.
Alrighty, Josh, you got anything you want to add to that?
He's, the thing is, we could talk about this for hours, and we would probably have more people calling in and different questions for Doc. And of course, we'll have him back in at some point throughout the year, maybe mid-season here during the basketball season. But like I said, we could talk about stuff like this for hours because there's things that when I'm working out now that I like to ask him. But we've got some scores and stuff to get to, and I'm sure he's got to get to some sort of golf match.
Golf, thank you very much. And the shorts are getting back on. It's now warming up.
Yeah.
It was cold this morning at 4 o'clock. Trust me, folks.
But it's warming up, and you're going to get
It's warming up for me.
Alrighty, well, our guest
Thanks,
this morning
guys.
has been Dr. Dan Freesmeier, and if you are in need of a good chiropractor, you've got the best in town right here. Stop on out and see Dr. Dan, and we will have you on probably here in the next couple of weeks, next couple of months. Once the season gets going, we'll kind of join up with Dr. Dan once again, and we'll also be taking more phone calls and more questions later on in the season.